Okay, welcome everyone. As we are dedicated by A.B. Spry for the safety of the soldiers and for Isser ben Yuta, and we what happened to my papers? Well, here it is. And by Shimon Klein, Lili Nishmas Asher Anshel ben Yehuda, Gittel by Shimon Pinchas, and by Irving Fishbaum for Issa ben Razel and Eliezer ben Razel. We learn for Avigdoraya ben Rivka, Meir ben Chayesar. They should have a Refu Shalema B'Seich Sha'achil Yisrael. We welcome in Eddie Chazan, Ben Zion Cohn, Irving Fishbaum, Itzi Fuchs, A.B. Spry, Mel Zachter, Marshall Castle, Yitzi Muller, Ruvain Pollack, Shimon Klein, and Menachem Umansky, Mo Kushner, Nachman Chapler, Dr. Udell, Shimon Deer, Moshe Lehman, Naftali Jablin, Rabbi Kranz, Shelley Zeitlin, Chaim Braun. Here in the shul, we have the distinct pleasure of having Saba, Gedalia Engel, Ruvain Chanet, Rich Lenner. We have Reb Kramer, Reb Ram, and Reb Blumenfeld. Pesach Sigelman is now joining us. David Helfgott on Kol HaLashon. As we start the very bottom of Daf Pei Amud Beis, Tan Rabbanan. Asaret Tana'in Hisna Yeshua, when Yeshua divided the land to the Shvatim, he did it with the following 10 conditions, that they were given the land accepting these conditions. Shiumarin B'chorshin, that everybody was allowed to graze in forests. We'll see that although this sounds pretty liberal, everybody could graze in people's private forests, we'll see that the Gemara restricts this greatly. Umalaktin eitzim b'sadei, they could collect twigs from other people's fields. Umalaktim asavim b'chol makom, they could also collect grass, chutz metilsin, except from a field of fenugreek, because the grass is good for the fenugreek. The kaitnin netias b'kol makom, and they could prune saplings and use it for their fuel. Chutz migrufiyoi shel zayis, except if they want to cut a sapling of a olive tree, they have to leave 2/5 fists in the ground growing from the stump and only cut above the 2/5. And if a fresh spring comes out from people's property, people could use the water from that stream. And you could go fishing with a hook and bait in the Sea of Tveria, even though it belongs to the Shevet of Naphtali. As long as you don't spread a sheet that would serve as a blockade for the boats. And you could go to the bathroom for privacy behind someone's fence. And the Gemara will say that this is teaching you that you could take out a rock from their rock wall in order to clean yourself with. And also you could relieve in their field, even if it's a field full of saffron, and the odor of your going to the bathroom might damage the saffron, you could go there for privacy. And you could go, now the Aruch learns over here this simple explanation, you could go on privately owned paths. You could walk on those paths through people's fields until the second rain falls. When the second rain falls, then already the crops are growing and it would damage the crops. Umistalkin letzidei hadrachim, and when you're walking on the public road, if it's after a rough winter where there are potholes, and the problem in the olden days was specifically that around the potholes formed bumps or ridges, because the road bulged out like pegs, so you're allowed to move into the side of the Rishus Harabim, even though you might be encroaching on people's private fields. V'atoya bein akramim. Let's let people in over here while I'm talking. People are in the waiting room. As we welcome in Stephen Holtzman, Baruch Ian, Abe Arbach joining us, and we are getting underway over here. For those that are just joining us, we are 10 lines from the top of Pei Aleph Amud Aleph. V'atoya bein akramim, if somebody, let's see who would, Marshall gets lost in somebody's vineyard, and he's like wandering around in the vineyard, so we let him slash his way out. I mean, they don't call him slasher for nothing. V'atoya bein akramim mafsig v'oila mafsig v'yored. He could slash his way up and slash his way down to get himself out. Umeis mitzvah, and if somebody dies on the road and he doesn't have any relatives, so he's a meis mitzvah, kaina mekaima, he acquires the place that he died and he's buried in the spot that he died, unless it's on a public road, so they move him to the side, as we will learn later on. And now the Gemara goes through all of these 10 stipulations. Sheyumarim b'choshen, that they would be allowed to pasture in forests. So Rav Papa now qualifies this severely. This is only small livestock in a very, very big forest. But a small livestock in a small forest, or gasa begasa, or even big livestock in a big forest, loy. And the koshein gasa bedaka delay. And surely a large livestock in a small privately owned forest is not allowed. Umalaktin eitzim misadeisehem, and they could gather wood from their fields. So again, wood is expensive for fuel. So the Gemara now severely restricts this. Umalaktin eitzim misadeisehem lo amrun behiz me v'higi. This is only referring to thorns and thistles. Aval b'shar eitzim loy, but other wood not. Va'afilu, and even if it would be thorns and thistles, va'afilu b'hiznei v'higmei lo yomer ela b'mechubaran. That's only if it wasn't yet cut down by the owner. But if he took the trouble, aval b'tlushin loy, if he cut the trouble to cut it down, you can't walk away with it. Va'afilu b'mechubaran, and even when it's attached, lo yomer ela b'lach, that when it's moist, aval b'yavation, but if it's dry, so it's ready for fuel, loy. And even when it's moist, you could cut it, ubavachli yisharish, as long as you don't pull it out, so that it won't. You don't want to make it that it shouldn't grow again. As we welcome in Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg for our 28th Zoomer of the young evening. We're missing a lot of people here tonight. Mark Frankel again is a no-show. He must be working very hard. I know that he's listening to this. So Mark, we really miss you, and Shalom Fogel is not here already for 2 days, and we're missing more people. A lot of people aren't here. Says the Gemara Vaita, and you could gather grass, chutz mistei tilson, except for in a field of fenugreek, because fenugreek needs the grass. Says the Gemara, "Lememra the tilson malula asavim." You mean to tell me that grass is good for the fenugreek? V'raminu tilson she'olsa imine asavim. If the fenugreek is intermingled with other types of grass. Now, normally we know that before Pesach they go out and they warn the people to uproot the kloyim, the forbidden mixture. Now, you're not allowed to mix other grass with fenugreek. And if you don't uproot it, then Shluchei Bezdin come and they uproot it themselves. But they don't require people to uproot grass from fenugreek, because the grass is anyway bad for the fenugreek, and the people will uproot it on their own. It depends if you're planting the fenugreek for seed or if you're planting it to grow shoots. As the Gemara says, lazera, if you're planting it to grow seed, kashula asavim, then the grass is bad for it, and that's why they don't have to uproot it, because people will uproot it on their own. The michal shala lazirim, because it weakens the shoots. The michal shala, because it weakens the seeds. Lazirin, but if it's for shoots, malila, the grass is beneficial. That's why you're not allowed to come in the field and take the grass out. The chikaime because when the fenugreek grows amongst the grass, mirchava, it has what to rest upon. So it's good for the tall shoots to have what to rest upon. Iba Yisema, or another answer is there's two different types of fenugreek. Kan adam, kan behema. One is where it's grown for human food. One is where it's grown for animal food. The came the behema dezara. Since it was grown for animal food, you don't care if the grass grows with it, because the animal will eat the grass too. Because asavim nami mibayle, the animal will eat the grass also. The question is, how do you know that it's being planted for human food or for animal food? Omino yadinan, how do you know? Amra papa share mishare, if they plant it in beds, in distinguished furrows, that's la'adam. Lo share mishare, if they don't plant it in beds, then it's lebehema, then it's for animals. Okay, moving along at a nice pace over here, 7 lines from the bottom of Daf Pei Aleph from an Aleph. With the help of Hashem, we plan to have a chok after the shir. Again, we are looking for a sponsor for the chok tonight. We don't have a sponsorship of the chok. Is very cheap. It's $100, and it's a tremendous schus. So anybody that's interested, 718-916-3100, RMMWSI at AOL.com. Even though I'm giving shir, you could text me if you're interested to sponsor tonight's chok. Truma Day 5. Truma Day 5. The kaitmin netia b'chol makam, and you could come into a field and prune and take the wood from a sapling in all situations, chutz migrufiyoi shel zayis, except for the 2 fists of the stump of an olive that you have to leave. Pirish Rabbi Tamkin v'Rebbi Baryes Mishum Zaken Echad. Reb Tamkin and Reb Baryes said in the name of a certain elder, Bezayis Kebeya, an olive tree you should leave the size of an egg. Bekanim ubegefanim, by reeds and by vines, min apkak olamala, you could cut from the first knot and above. Shar kala ilanis, and other trees, other fruit trees, min ubay shel ilan, you could cut the fresh branches, v'loy min chuday shel ilan, not the trunk of the tree. Min chodesh she'ein oisaperis, and even a branch, you could only cut a branch that doesn't yet produce fruit, v'loy min yoshin, but not an old branch, shu oisaperis, so then you can't trim it off. And even a branch that's new, you could only take memokum she'eino roya esachama. You can only take from densely growing fresh branches in the middle, which is shielded from the sun. That which is in the sun is a precious branch, that's precious real estate. Not from a place that sees the sun. From the yield of that which produces in the sun, that's precious, and therefore that you cannot cut down. And a spring that comes out fresh the first time from Baruch's property in Ashby, He has a stream there. I'm telling you, he's the only one in the whole Deerfield breach, but he has a stream. Says the Gemara, the HOA is going to get on his case, but until they find out about it, mistapkin b'nei ha'ir mistapkin minen. People could take from it. First, the Gemara thinks that they could only take from it and pay baruch. They have to compensate baruch. However, the less hilchos or kavasi. The halacha is not like Rabbi Bar Avuna. Umechakin b'yama shel Tveria, and you could fish with a hook and bait in the yam of Tveria. Ubelvad shelo yifreis kela, as long as you don't spread a sheet. V'yamed es asvina, and block the boat. Avol tzadhu. Now this gersa of al tzadhu berishleis b'mechmaros, the Gra takes out, because it says you can only fish with a hook, not with nets. Tan Rabbanan berishaina. Initially, hisnu, the enactment was in Rishaina hisnu shvatim zem zeh. The tribes made a condition with one another, shelo yifreis kliya v'yamad es asvina, that you won't spread anything that could block the boats. Aval tzadu berishtais b'chmaros, but you could use different types of nets, because small nets will not block the boats. Now, Tanarabban Yama Shel Tveria, the sea of Tveria, Bechelkoi Shel Naphtali Yoisa, was in the portion of the Shevet of Naphtali. Interesting, by the way, if you look at the word Naphtali, it's the same letters as Tefillin. Isn't that interesting? Naphtali, if you do an anagram of Naphtali, it's the same letters as Tefillin. So anyway, Yama Shel Tveria, Bechelkoi Shel Naphtali Yoisa, and not only that, not only did they get the whole span of the Sea of Tveria, they also had a full length of a net, bidroima, more southward, so that they could unload their stuff onto the beach. L'kayim ashenema yom v'doram yerusha. They had the sea, and more to the south was their inheritance. Tanya, in the Brisa, Reb Shimon Elazar Aimer, Tlushin Shebaharim, when they entered Eretz Yisrael, those trees that were uprooted from the mountains, Becheskas Kol HaShvatim Eimaim, they belonged to anybody who took it, finders, keepers. Umechubarim, but that which was still attached, Becheskas Oisa HaShevet, is the possession of the one whose Shevet the mountains are in. The Ein Loch Kol Shevet V'Shevim Yisrael, Baruch Hashem, Eretz Yisrael is so diverse that of the Shvatim in Klal Yisrael, there wasn't a Shevet in Yisrael, She'ein Loi Bahar, that did not have on his property mountainous regions, Ushvela, lowlands. Negev are plains, and they're called Negev because the word Negev comes from the word Neguva, dry. So here Negev doesn't mean south. But Negev means straight land, the plains, which because they're straight land, the sun beats down on it and makes everything dry. Uba Emek and valleys. Shenemar Pnu usulachem, turn and travel. Ubo haram Amori, come to the mountain of Amori, vel kol shechenav, and you will have there Ba'arava, the plains, Bahar, mountainous, B'shvela, lowlands, Ubenegev, and the dry land, the straight land, Ubechayf hayam. Marshal learns that the shore of the sea is a lowland, and therefore that is where you see that they all had an emek. The Chaynat might say, and so not only Eretz Yisrael, but also their neighbors, Beknanim, Beprizim, or Be'amorim, Shalafnehem, that were before them, they also had all of these lands. Shenema ve'es kol shechenav, all of their neighbors. Ve'el kol shechenav, al meshchenav al chavi, the neighbors also had all four of these type of properties. I know I should slow down over here to give you a chance to catch your breath over here. I want to remind everybody that I do have a YouTube channel, and on the YouTube channel, every day, I put new shiurim on the YouTube channel. There is a shir there that I put called Tu B'Shvat Gems from 5780. Also, I just put two shiurim on B'Shalach, one from the COVID year, which I gave when I was quarantined in my house. That's from the year 5781. And I just put also a shir from Rabbi Landau's shul from 5717. So you could check that out, and don't forget to subscribe and to hit like. The Gemara continues. V'nifnin la'achure ageder, and a person, one of the 10 stipulations was that a person who's traveling could, for privacy, relieve himself behind your fence, v'afilu b'steishim malei karkan, even a field full of saffron. Now, the Gemara says that this also gives permission if Baruch has a rock wall, for the person to take a rock out of the wall to clean himself with. The Chiddush is he could take a rock from the wall. Rav Chisda says that it could be done even on Shabbos. It's not considered Saisa D'Oraisa. Even if it's an Issa D'Rabbanan, we say Gadol Kavar Abriya Shadayches Mitzvah Sasei Shabbatayra. So for human dignity, a person could take out a rock from the wall. Rav Chisda afilu b'Shabbos mazuter chasida mazuter pious shakel. He would take out a rock, and when he was finished it, umahadri, he would put it back in. V'amalei l'shamei, and he would tell his attendant, on Shabbos we can't do it, but l'macher, tomorrow on Sunday, zil shirke, come back and cement the rock back in place. As we welcome in Aaron Swade. Aaron Swade, who has finished his Navi share. You all know that Aaron Swade ditches this share for his Navi share. It's like there's certain people, these lowlifes, they're learning with these people longer than learning with me. Like Reuven Pollack, who ditches my share to go to another share that he's learning with longer than me. What could I do? I get upstaged by these guys. But no, we won't talk about ice verfs. We won't talk about that on this. This is a family-friendly share. We don't give anybody bad ideas. This is a share of growing people. Not people that would ever think of doing such a thing like missing a share for a hockey game. It wouldn't even enter their havamina, as they say in yeshiva. But anyway, Marshall was just kidding. We all know that. The Gemara says, "U'mahalchim mishvil or rishus," and you could walk on private paths until the second rain falls. Rav Papa says, but v'haidi done, in our climate, in our karka, it's so sensitive that afilu tal koshila, even if dew comes upon it, stepping upon it would be detrimental. And when walking in the Rishus Rabbim, you're permitted to veer off to the side, even if you have to walk on private property, because because of potholes, the path grows bumps, which could be dangerous to walk on. Shmuel and Rabbi Yehuda were walking on the road, and there were these potholes. Have a mistalik Shmuel at Sidei Adrachim, and Shmuel went off the road. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda, so Rabbi Yehuda asked Shmuel, T'noin shehisni Yeshua, these conditions that Yeshua did, afilu b'bavel, do they apply even in Bavel, that you're walking off the side into other people's roads in Bavel? Amalei Shani Yomi, he says yes, and not only in Bavel, afilu b'chutz la'aretz, even in the diaspora. Rebbe and Reb Chia, the great Rebbe and Reb Chia, were walking on the road. They veered off to the side to avoid the potholes. The very pious Rabbi Yehuda ben Knusa was walking ahead of them, and he was not going off the road. Amalei Rebbe Rebbe Chia. So Rebbe said to Rebbe Chia, who is this Shemara Gedula Bifanein, who is acting more pious in front of us? And that's a challenge of Yuara, that it looks like he's being haughty, and therefore he deserves excommunication. Amalei Rebbe Chia. So Rebbe Chia says, look, Shema Rebbe Yehuda ben Knusa Talmidehu. Maybe it's Rebbe Yehuda ben Knusa, my disciple, who everything he does is l'shem shemayim. And I could vouch that everything he does is for the sake of heaven. There's no haughtiness involved. When they reached him, they saw that it indeed was Rabbi Yehuda ben Knusa. Amalei, so they told him, Ilav Yehuda ben Knusa, if it wouldn't be that you are Yehuda ben Knusa, that we know that your motivation is purely sincere, Gazartinu l'shakech begizra de parsla. We would cut your thighs with an iron saw, which this was a euphemism for putting him into excommunication, because if a person's thighs are cut, he can't go out amongst people, and a person that's excommunicated has to distance himself from people. Now let's get to Marshall wandering around in the vineyard. We could just see it. All right, just see it. That by the way, that is Mida Keneged Mida. If anybody gets lost at a hockey game instead of coming to the shir, it would be Mida Keneged Mida that he should be wandering around lost somewhere. Which we all know that's would be the fate of somebody who would be foolish enough to do such a thing.
I don't get lost at hockey.
Yeah, no, you get lost somewhere else. Anyway, I know you apologize. I understand. Anyway, this is I let all the.
I got lost plucking stones out of the wall.
I let all the children know not to listen to you. As we have in front of 1 million Haimish Yidden, Marshall is making trouble now. Tana Rabbana. Haraya Chaveiro, if you see your friend, Toya Bein Akromin, wandering in the vineyard, not only can he chop the vines, mafsik v'oila mafsik v'yorid, you could slash at the vines and go up, and slash at the vines and go down, until you manage to bring him to the city, or get him to the road. V'chein, and not only can somebody else do it, v'chein hu shetoya bein akram, Marshall, who himself is lost in the vineyard, mafsik v'oila, he could slash to go up, mafsik v'yored, ad sheyala le'ir, until he gets to the city, or he gets to the road. So the Gemara says, "My v'chein." Why do we have to say both cases? So the Gemara says, "Well, I might think that Yitz, who sees Marshall inside, he could slash to get to him because he knows where he's going and he knows how to get out. He's not going to start slashing around and damaging the whole vineyard, going around in circles." So Ma'od Sema Chaveiruhu Diyada Lehecha Masalik, Yitz, who sees from the outside and he knows where to go. The nifsak, he could slash. But Marshall doesn't know where he's going. He's going to end up going around in circles and damage the whole guy's stuff. Loy nifsig, what should he do? Nahadre, he should trace his steps back, Bei Mitzvah, to the edge of the field, and walk all the way around the field until he finds the city. Kamash Malan, we allow him to slash his way out. Says the Gemara, well, but I don't understand. Of course we allow him to do that. It's daraisa. If you have to return someone else who's lost, so you certainly could return yourself who's lost. Says it's daraisa. The Tanya hashavas gufay minayin. How do you know that you could save your own body? Even if it's at the expense of someone else. Talmud Leimer v'ashevoso. Return him. Even returns himself. He could find his own way. Says the Gemara, no. I might think that midaraisa he could only go till he gets to the edge of the field, and then he walks all the way around the border till he finds where he has to go. Daraisa dekoibe mitzvah. He only allow him to get to the border. Also, who talking? The takana of Yeshua is the mafsik v'olam, mafsik v'yared. He could slash up and slash down to cut a shortcut to get out and not have to walk around. The border of the field might be 5 miles, so not walk around the whole field. Now, umeis mitzvah kona mikayma. If somebody dies and he has no relatives and no one to bury him, he's buried on the spot. He acquires the spot where he dies. It says Gemara, "V'mini hamaitzi meis mutal bisratya." If you find a dead body, a John Doe, across the road, mefaneu liyaminas ratya l'smolis ratya. You move him to the right or to the left. Stay burv is stay near. If on one side there's a fallow field and the other side a plowed field, so it would be more damaging to bury him in the plowed field than mefaneu stay burv. We move him to the fallow field. Stay near v'stay zera. If one field is just plowed, the other is planted. Mefaneu stay near. We move him to the plowed field. Hayushtayim burushtayim nirushtayim zerus. If both were fallow, or both were plowed, or both were planted. Mefaneu l'makom sheyirtza. You could move him to either one. Amar Abeivai b'mut. So the Gemara says, but you see, you move him. He doesn't acquire his place. So Amar Abeivai, normally he does acquire his place. But b'mutal ala meitzer, but if he's lying across the road, so you can't keep him there because then Kohanim won't be able to go on the road. Mitoch shenit and lifnaisai, since you're allowed to move him, then mefanel l'b'kol makom sheyirtza, you could move him to any direction. So the Gemara says if you count them, I know you haven't been counting, but if you count them, then there isn't 10 takonas, there's 11 takonas. Imrei asara, why do you say that there's 10 takonas? Hani chad sare having, these are 11. Says the Gemara, mahalkim b'shvilei rishus, that which you're allowed to go on private paths until the second rain, that's not from Yoshua, that's Shloima Amra. That was said by Shloima HaMelech. Kedetanya, like we learned in the Brisa, Hari shekalu peiroisav min hasada. If, let's say, a person finished with the fruits in the field, so there's nothing to damage, and he doesn't allow people to come into the field, what will people say about him? What does he have to lose? How do people damage him? All of Akasav about him, it says, instead of being good, if you have a chance to be good, al tikrei ra, don't be known as bad. So the Gemara says there's no such pasuk. If you could be good, al tikrei ra. So the Gemara says it says that sentiment in Ksiv ki agavna. It says in, and that's why we say it's from Shlomo HaMelech, because it's a pasuk in Mishlei. In Ksiv ki agavna, it says like this: Al timna toiv mibalav. Don't hold back good from people. If you have the power to do it, it's not causing you to have any harm, so don't withhold a favor to people. Says the Gemara, V'suleka, there's only 10. For Ikad Rabbi Yehuda, the Tan Rabbi Yehuda, when people take out manure to use as fertilizer, you're allowed to take it out into the public domain with and pile it up for 30 days in order that people and animals should trot upon it, which would make it better fertilizer. Because on this condition, Yeshua gave the land to the people. And the Tanya Rabbi Shmuel B'nai Shel Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, I'm a Tanai Bezdin who, it's a condition of Bezdin, that a person could go into his friend's field. Let's say Marshall is a biologist, he has bees, and his bees went and onto Rich's tree branch. Now his bees are worth a lot of money, so Yeshua made this enactment that Marshall could come in and cut down Rich's branch to save his swarm, and he reimburses Rich for the branch. But Rich can't say, "Don't cut down my branch." But tonight, and it's a condition. Gedalia spills out his wine. To save Marshall's honey. Honey was more valuable than wine. And then he collects the money of his lost wine, taking it out of Marshall's wax. And it's also a condition, if Saba was going with his donkey, and Saba has wood on his donkey, and Marshall's donkey collapses with more expensive flax, so that Saba could unload his wood and retrieve Marshall's flax and collect the money from his wood from the flax. It's because with these conditions Yeshua transmitted the land, so we have a lot more than 10 cases. It says, well, these cases are in the name of an individual. Says the Gemara, we're not discussing cases in the name of an individual. We are going to stop here, Rabbi Isai. Very nice to do this, such a beautiful daf with all 30 of you. I want to point out that, again, we have an easier daf. The Rabbi Nisham is giving us a chance over here to regain our strength. I also want to point out that we have now a chok